Welcome to the Fan2Fan Podcast 5 Minute Frights, wherein, give or take 5 minutes, we'll try to share something creepy, kooky, mysterious, spooky, something fun and frightful that you can add to your to-watch queue as we all get ready for Halloween season. My name is Bernie Gonzalez, and on this episode, I'm joined by returning guests Michele, Brittany, and Joshua Pruett as we talk about one of our favorite horror films of all time, John Carpenter's The Fog. A little bit about Michele. She's a writer, editor, photographer, pop scholar. Her interests lie in horror, spy genre, gothic genre, edited a number of essay collections, and she's also the co-host of the HP Lovecast podcast. And you can visit Michele, Brittany, 1 L in Michele, 2 T's in Brittany.com to check out Michele's blog and her latest work. We also have returning guest Joshua Pruett, New York Times bestselling author, Emmy Award-winning writer. Josh has worked on Mystery Science Theater, Doctor Who, Phineas and Ferb. And you can find Josh online at Zombie TARDIS. All right, let's get into it. We're talking John Carpenter's 1980 The Fog.
It is night. It is cold. It is coming. All those who can hear my voice, look into the darkness across the water. Look for the fog. John Carpenter's The Fog. What in the living hell is out there? John Carpenter's The Fog. Coming soon from Avco Embassy Pictures.
Yes!
And I love this pick, Michele, because when you think of John Carpenter, The Fog will sometimes feel like a B-side. But I'd say over the years, I feel like sometimes The Fog has continued to bump its way up. And October, fall, it feels like a perfect fireplace, campfire type movie.
Yeah.
Right on.
So, yes, John Carpenter has done a lot of great films. I mean, and like you said, Bernie, Halloween, The Thing, Escape from New York. I would say The Fog, and I think Assault on Precinct 13 is actually a very, very good film.
Agreed.
But my number one love is The Fog. First and foremost, I love ghost stories. Mm-hmm. And so, they open with just the most delicious ghost stories. It just floats right through the rest of the film. I feel like it's a clean narrative, great direction. You've got your fun jump scares. Got your cast of characters that John Carpenter's able to create interest and buy-in. You care about these characters, and ultimately, I think really stands the test of time. Mm-hmm. It's a small town Americana, as a lot of horror films are, and it's one that many of us can find some character that we can identify with and kind of take an interest in. So the backdrop of the small town's familiar for all of us. For me, it is personally. I used to drive through the area, so I'm familiar with that area. It's Bodega Bay. Hitchcock shot The Birds up in that area. So again, kind of sentimental, but it's John Carpenter. I think it is at his finest. Great music, obviously, great direction, great script. Everything came together.
It's interesting because I think this movie, in hindsight, we get to see the struggle that it was. He wasn't happy with the movie, went back and did some reshoots, and that's where we get those amazing poltergeist activity shots in the beginning. But that with the John Houseman introduction just fully leans into exactly what you mentioned, Michele, the campfire ghost story, that idea that we are witnessing that this may have happened and it's being relayed to us. And in the same ways that Adrienne Barbeau's character is also being the narrator, talking about the void and how it's a siege movie. In the end, everyone ends up in the church. Mm-hmm. These revenants, ghost pirates, whatever you want to call them, are making their way to the church to basically take their vengeance on Antonio Bay, the folks that have wronged them in the past. And so much here to unpack about sins of the father. And we could do an entire podcast on this movie alone. We should.
But we should.
We absolutely should.
Yes, we should.
But I think think that's a case where, because some of the movies that we've talked about, like Phantasm, for example, they had that other thing, that other gear that, and I think this is to John Carpenter's dismay, people don't find that gear until later. And his work has been that much more appreciated given time.
Yeah, in retrospect.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think The Fog is certainly in that category. It's the movie that has only become better with age, just like movies like The Thing. The Fog very much has just continued to I think, increase in its fan base.
Yeah, I think I would be remiss not if didn't bring up, it was in my list, and that I think one of its many charms, I think, is, this is one of the few movies that Carpenter wrote with Deborah Hill. There are qualities that this has, that the first Halloween has, the strength of character and our ability to kind of connect with this very interesting cast of locals, and Jamie Lee's, her hitchhiker. Like there's some very interesting kind of progressive characters in this world, and similar to the voice that Deborah gave to our main cast, I feel like some of that is very evident here, not just to assign the female authorship to her, but there are some more sophisticated female relationships in this movie than I would say is commonplace for, an 80s horror film that speaks to a lot of its strength.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yep, great choice. And I think especially during the October season, during fall.
Yeah, it's just perfect.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Halloween is great on Halloween, but man, sometimes, right? If you get both of them and you put them in front of me at 10:23 p.m. on October 31st. So I know this movie's finishing at around midnight. Josh is doing it right now. It's the balancing act. I'm like, I don't know.
One? Well, but I think it's what both of you said. It's like the combination of the ghost story up front, and how beautifully that's staged, and even how famously sloshed Mr. Hausman was on set for
was he really?
Day.
I did not know that.
Oh, it's brutal. There's outtakes on, if not our version in the UK edition, but but he's brilliant. Totally worth it. And the combination of that with that title sequence, which again is so mind-blowing that they added it after the fact, I would be hard-pressed to find other ghost story films that do that as effectively. But the mood that elicits, those two sequences,
That's perfect.